Recording now. Okay. What's up? It's Phil from Fit Will Exposed. In today's episode, we have a very special guest, Silent Mike. Now, this guy doesn't really need any
What's happening, man?
introduction. Doesn't really need any introduction. I'm sure a lot of you guys already know who he is, but to those who don't know, very strong powerlifter, affiliated with Mark Bell. He's done some work with Omar Yusuf. He's a very known YouTuber and very respected in the fitness community. So very happy to have him on the channel today. I think you guys are going to learn a lot. I'm going to ask him a handful of questions on every single lift, and it's going to be a blitz Q&A. So we're just going to blast through questions, 45 minutes, and we're just going to have some fun. So how are you doing today, man?
Let's do it. I'm good, dude. How are you doing?
Great. So let's start with the first things first before we get to questions. Let's talk about like your lifts, right? Like, you mind telling the audience what your current lifts are in the gym and in a meet?
Yeah, in a meet, my best total is around 1600, like 1602 or something. Best lifts separately is a 590 squat, 405 bench, and 705 deadlift.
Oh, wow. Crazy. Drug-free too, huh?
Yeah, so far.
So far, yeah, exactly. So it's like, so to all you guys, all the audience watching, thinking that you can't do much drug-free, Silent Mike exemplifies that. Like, he's pretty elite natural,
Yeah, there's a lot of strong guys, especially recently, that are crushing huge numbers in drug-tested federations, man. Training and programming and technique and everything's being, being perfected over these years that raw lifting's more popular. So, I mean, no one's even close to the ceiling yet. Guys are squatting 1,050 drug tested. So there's some crazy things happening in the strength world.
Mm-hmm. I think it's because the sport is really growing, And
100%.
It's crazy. I was just talking to my buddy about this, how maybe in like 2011, 2012, what's it called? That's before that, it was really a lot of geared powerlifting, at least in my opinion, And then I feel like after 2011 broke out, people are just doing it raw,
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's definitely just over the last couple of years, 3 to 5 years that, raw powerlifting's really exploded.
Yeah, and like it's crazy because how I could tell is because the standards are going up. Like, I remember back in 2012, at least in most commercial gyms, like, you're considered the man if you bench 3 plates,
Yeah.
But now it's like in 2017, the new 315 is 405,
Yeah, it's very true.
315 is like the new 225, I find, like.
Yeah, same with deadlifts. Everyone on YouTube was pulling around 500 back in the day, and then now everybody, they're pulling
like,
7+.
It's like peanuts now, like.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But I like it at the same time because it's like it sets higher standards for us,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, if you stay in the game and stay injury-free and just have some kind of plan and stay consistent, you're going to get stronger too. So everyone's kind of moving up together, leveling up.
Yeah, and especially when you're drug-free, you have to get strong if you want to get big, So
yeah,
it's pretty much no other way for the most part. And I know some of my audience watching are not powerlifters, or some of you guys maybe don't care about powerlifting, but if you're chasing, aesthetics, you still have to get very strong. And the squat, bench, deadlift, along with all their variations, we could learn a lot from Silent Mike regarding these lifts, So that's what we're going to go over right now.
Yeah, I think bodybuilding and powerlifting are more hand in hand than people want to recognize.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of press, even if it's a dumbbell press, it doesn't really matter, an incline press, it's still pretty much powerlifting. And if you progressively overload, you get stronger, or you handle more volume, that's how you get big. The only main difference is bodybuilders or people for aesthetics may have a broader range of exercise variation. They're going to use more tools in their toolbox, while powerlifters typically just use a little bit less and stick to squat, bench, deadlift, and things that are a little bit closer related.
Mm-hmm. It's true, because I went to my first. I watched my buddies meet. Carlos, if you're watching,
Shout out Carlos.
Shout out Carlos. And me, obviously, as like a coach who's really, I'm focused a bit more on like the body transformation aspect, but I'm still obviously focused on strength too. Like, those are pretty much the 2 departments I'm really looking at. So when I went to that meet, I noticed that Carlos was in a very he was in like the 180 class, whatever, And I've noticed these guys are fucking strong. This is a QPF, so it's Quebec. It's like it's like the most respected in Quebec, and they're super strong. But I've noticed that some of these lifters aren't super big, And I was talking to my buddy about it. We were watching it, and it's because some of them don't care about bicep training. Some of them don't care about calf training. Some of them don't care about neck training.
Yeah,
Some of them don't even care about direct trap training because it's not gonna, or like lateral head training.
yeah,
For the shoulders.
yeah. I think that, and then
I think
obviously,
it's really that.
yeah, genetics obviously play a role. If you're super small, that's kind of why I think powerlifting's exploded. If you're super small, you already just know, like, probably not going to be a bodybuilder. Like, it's not in my, people that tend to go towards a sport, like if you're a really tall kid in fifth grade, everyone's saying like, hey, bro, you should play basketball. And then you're like, oh, maybe I should play basketball, and you go and play basketball. I think similar with bodybuilding, where if you already have some muscle or you have a big frame, people are like, oh, have you thought about bodybuilding? Or maybe you even think about it yourself, like, dang, I'm a big kid, I should go bodybuild. Where powerlifting, since it's weight class based, anyone can kind of get in where they fit in. I mean, there's 148 pound
Yeah,
guys that are benching over 400 pounds, and they just kind of think like, man, I'm 5'5", I'm 140 pounds. What do I do? And then they find this sport and kind of excel in it, as well as the
exactly.
things you said, where there's some muscles you can get stronger, and it always helps to have more muscle. Even biceps and a side delt and things. It's always going to help in the long run, but the focus isn't going to be there.
Exactly. Like doing getting like a 200-pound neck extension is not gonna really help your deadlift much. Like.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Anyway. Okay, so let's get into the questions now. So we're gonna go squat, bench, deadlift. So it's gonna be blitz Q&A. So what are some tips you could give the audience to engage the lats during the back squat?
Yeah, the most simple one, obviously everyone's form is going to be a little different, but the biggest thing I try to do is, one, you try to get tight before you unrack the weight, and that goes for every lift. Once you're under load, once you have the weight on your back, you have the weight in your hands in the bench, it's harder to get tight or as tight. So you want to get as tight as you can while the bar's still in the rack. And for your lats, I literally just think about pinching my elbows together behind my back. And I almost think about doing a lat pull down behind my back. I'm pulling the
Yeah.
barbell as tight as I can into my back. So traps together, scapula together, and squeezing that barbell down into your back as hard as you can, literally as hard as you can, so it's pretty uncomfortable.
So what's your thoughts on lifters saying that you should try to like kind of pull the bar apart while it's on your back?
Yeah, I think that's a different cues for work for different people. But the
Yeah, you're right.
majority,
You're right.
yeah, but the majority of the time, kind of pulling apart is going to end up like being a tricep extension or a rear delt movement. When I think about it that way, maybe that clicks for someone else's head. But for me personally, I just think about pulling straight down, and if I can pull that barbell into my traps or into my mid back, I feel the tightest.
Okay. But it's an interesting point you said because like you talk to like 10 different coaches about this and you're gonna get 10 different answers. So it's like the whole breathing thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think
That's why it's important to get different points of view so you could like see what works for you.
yeah, 100%. And I think, a good coach has multiple cues for the same thing. So then when they're coaching an athlete in person or online, whatever, they can, if one cue isn't working, you move on to the next one and another next one. People talk about YouTube or even teachers in high school or whatever. They're very repetitive. They're very repetitive and say the same thing multiple times to try to get into your head. If you just say something one time and it doesn't click, you'll breeze over it, you'll never learn it, and you'll never learn that sensation. But if you say the same thing over and over, mental cues, same thing over and over, different cues over and over, hopefully something will stick and you can start to apply it.
Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about jumps, like doing box jumps and stuff of that nature. Maybe before the squat, or just have it somewhere in your program. Because I know some powerlifters tend to incorporate some forms of like plyometrics and stuff like that. What's your take on this? Like, let's say before you squat, you were to do a few box jumps.
Yeah, I think that's gone a little bit out of style. I think it still can fit in some routines. Again, talking about kind of exercise variation, if you really want to get good at squat, bench, deadlift, we have to so we have to put most of our focus there, and then we have to slowly, it's kind of a spectrum, move further away. So if a squat is up here, the most specific we can get, and let's say a calf raise is at the opposite end of that spectrum, right? Where
Yeah.
sure we use our calves, but not really in the squat. And then everything else in between. In majority of bodybuilding, we're using this whole spectrum. And in powerlifting, we're probably just going to focus on this top half. So, one step away from a squat might be a pause squat. 2 steps away might be a tempo squat. 3 steps away might be a safety squat bar squat, something like that. And I think plyometrics probably land somewhere in the middle. So I think in some off-season training, if you wanted to warm up with something like that, get loose, maybe go for a walk, pull a sled, do an elliptical, ride a bike, and then do a couple sets box jumps. I don't think it's going to hurt, but I don't think it's going to make or break your strength as a power lifter. I think it can be involved, and I think some med ball tosses and some different plyometrics are very good movements. But if your goal is just to be a power lifter, I don't think it has to be in your program per se.
Okay. What's your take on let's talk knee sleeves, not knee wraps, knee sleeves. Who do you think? Okay, first off, because obviously they help you a little bit. You know, if they didn't help you a little bit, no one would be using them. You know, clearly there's some merit to them. You will go to all the meets; they all have like the approved knee sleeves. And I want to know on your part, when do you think a lifter should incorporate knee sleeves into your training? Let's say someone, for example, take me for example. I'm not a crazy squatter. I'm squatting a little under 500. I'm at like 455. If you were to take a guy like me, when do you think like the knee sleeves would be necessary or applicable?
I think they're great tools for both strength and aesthetic training, because with both those cases, especially someone who's not using any kind of performance enhancing drugs, the game becomes a lot longer. You know, longevity is the name of the game. The longer you can train consistently, even if you have shit form and shit programming, if you have a long term, we're talking years, 5, 10, 15 years of training under your belt, then you're going to get strong and you're going to get big. So those tools can help you in that situation, I think. So I think they're pretty applicable to almost anyone. If you're a true beginner, you know, and you not even sure you like to lift, maybe don't spend the 50 or $100 on them. But if you already know you like to lift, I don't see why you wouldn't. It's kind of the same thing with a belt. It's only going to help you feel a little bit better. It's going to help you train a little bit heavier. It's going to allow you to train a little bit longer. So I think it's a good tool kind of for anybody.
Okay. Now, as far as the benefits of knee sleeves, like what? They keep your knees warm. Do you think they help them from collapsing a little bit, or?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of rebound in there just because there's material behind your knee while you're squatting, similar to what a wrap does. Basically, a wrap, all you're trying to do is build up material here, so when your knee crunches down, it has something to kind of rebound off of, almost like a little trampoline. So it's a little bit of variation of that. It keeps your knees warm, and then a little bit of compression, which may help a little bit in the safety factor. But like you said, they wouldn't be around if they didn't help. But I also am not going to say that they add 30 pounds to your squat either. But they're comfortable. They're part of the game. They've kind of become stylish. So if that's something to you, you know, the whole part of all this is hopefully that you're having fun, you know, whether you are a bodybuilder, powerlifter, or the otherwise.
Of course.
And so if you like them, if you think they look cool, if you think they feel good, I say go after it.
Okay. So what kind of sleeves would you recommend? And also, when would you recommend incorporating them in the workout? Like, do you, like, let's say if you're squatting 500 pounds, would you like throw them on after like 4 or 5, or like you just throw them on from the get-go, or?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of different companies that are really solid. You know, Slingshot makes a pair, SBD makes a pair, Ray-Ban makes some pairs that are all fine and dandy. If you are competing in powerlifting, you have to check your federation because some are legal and some are not or approved. In terms of throwing them on, I think it's personal preference, but typically lifters throw them on from, you know, 135 or the barbell. Me personally, I have a little bit of tradition or superstition when I do it, so I have them kind of low and on the bottom of my leg until about 315. Then I'll put them on all the way up. But I definitely recommend probably just putting them on from the beginning once you start to lift.
Okay. All right, perfect. So let's get into last question for the squat actually.
Yeah.
Okay, well, obviously in powerlifting you don't have to pause during the squat, right? I actually thought you had to pause.
Yeah.
And I watched it. I just see everybody bouncing, just hitting depth and going back up. So
yeah, you got to pause in the bench, so it's an easy assumption.
So let's say, for example, if you're really weak in the hole during the squat, right? Like, let's say if you do some cycles where, you do some pause squats. Do you personally believe that doing a lot of pause work actually carries over to the touch and go? Or do you think if you just strictly do some touch and go, you're going to have a strong pause?
Yeah, I think
What's your take?
yeah, I think a pause squat is a great accessory for the majority of people. Another favorite is just like a tempo squat. So you're taking almost kind of a bodybuilder time under tension type deal where you're going to take 4 seconds to go down into the hole, go in the exact same pace. You're going to get to the bottom of the hole and take 4 seconds to come right back up. You're obviously going to use lighter weights there, 30 to maybe 50% sets anywhere from 5 to even 10, I think. That plus pausing in the hole for two to 5 seconds, something like that. And I think a transfer is great. Pacing in powerlifting or the squat is very important. How fast you can get in and out of the hole, or the pace and tempo that you squat at to squat your most is important. So you don't want to lose that also. You always kind of want to practice that because under maximal load, you don't want to end up pausing. Obviously, it's going to make it harder. But a pause squat's a great movement. I have a majority of my athletes do it at some time or another.
Okay. So let's say if someone were to squat twice a week, they have like an intensity day where they squat really heavy with low reps, and then maybe 3-4 days later, they're squatting again. You recommend on the day 3 to 4 days later they do like a pause squat,
Yeah, I think you can do it either way.
something like that.
Yeah, I think you can go a little bit heavier in the pause squat as well. Obviously, it's going to be to ratio. So if you squat 450, the pause squat, a heavy pause squat might be 365, 385, something like that. But I think doing that for sets of 3 or 5 is also very valuable, as well as going a little bit lighter, 315 for sets of 5 to 10 pause squat as
Okay.
well. Or doing it after. If you have a kind of a heavier day of squats and you're working up to 445 for a double or something, or a couple doubles, and then the exercise afterwards, you could do 315 or 365 for some drop sets of pause squats. I think either way is good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's dive more into the bench now. Okay. Da-da-da. Okay, what's your take on lat engagement in the bench?
I think obviously the lats, similar to a squat and deadlift, they allow you to kind of keep your midline and your shoulders tight. The shoulders are a really mobile joint. It can obviously go 360 in a bunch of degrees because you have to reach up to trees and grab things on the ground or whatever. And when you're bench pressing, you want that shoulder to be less mobile so you can control that heavy weight over your chest. So it's going to be very similar to the squat where I'm trying to pinch my shoulder blades together behind my back and down as tight as I can the entire time. And that alone typically will tighten your back. I think, again, for a while, powerlifters were kind of looking for different cues to teach people how to tighten their back. And so then they started talking about benching with your lats or your back, or big back equals a big bench. And all this is probably true, but I think it's kind of putting the magnifying glass maybe on the wrong area. So yes, your lats are involved. They do help stabilize your shoulder during the bench press and other movements. But I think as long as we keep focus on kind of our shoulder blades being tight together and down, pressing in the proper bar path, then your lats kind of do their own job.
So okay, so what are some basic cues that you could give like the viewers? Because I was basically taught when I want to engage my lats, um, you kind of do somewhat of a pullover movement when you're unrocking the bar.
Yeah, yeah,
But the problem with that is I changed gyms and now they have J hooks. So now it's like I can't really
yeah,
do that pullover movement. So what are some tips if someone doesn't have a lift off? You know, because
yeah,
obviously like you don't always have someone around, and if they have J hooks,
yeah.
what's the best way to really engage the lats?
I think obviously it is best when you can to get a spotter to get a lift off, because then you can really keep your shoulders tight and not worry about pressing the bar out of the hooks. I guess if you're stuck with some deep J hooks, you could try making them a little bit lower, so then you can almost press it with your arms out of the rack rather than if it's way out of reach, then you're gonna have to press it with your shoulders out of the rack.
Okay, so
Keeping
you do
your
like a pin
sternum.
press.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, like a
Okay.
1 inch pin press. Even though that's not optimal either. Obviously, that's hard and it's kind of in a dangerous position because it's over your eyes. That's why I just prefer a spotter when possible. Um, Keeping your chest up as high as you can. So you're going to try to really pull your sternum up, and again, shoulder blades behind your back. And then also, as long as your elbows are underneath the barbell, underneath or just in front through the entire motion, the rest kind of falls into place.
Okay. Interesting. I find the the lats and the bench, it's interesting because I've talked to so many different coaches about it.
Yeah.
And I always get a completely different answer every single time, you know?
Yeah, I think the different answer is just because, again, where these coaches maybe put their focus, and where they don't, and you can kind of coach things from top down or bottom up. And in my opinion, when you're talking about using your back to bench press, you're kind of coaching bottom up. I'd rather just do top down. So if you squeeze your shoulder blades together, the bar is kind of over your mid chest when you're benching. The lats will hopefully do their job.
So if a coach says something like imagine rowing the bar to, that's kind of
Yeah.
like the bottom down, bottom up, whatever
Yeah,
approach.
yeah, a little bit. That's a cue I use a lot, actually, because a lot of people tend to kind of be weightless with the bar and let it drop into your chest, and then your back tends to fold out, and you lose that tightness, rather than if your sternum's high again and your shoulder blades are tucked behind you and you row that bar into you, like an inverted row or just even a barbell row, slow and controlled, pulling it down into you, chances are you'll keep that back tight.
Okay, interesting. Okay, now it's more of a bodybuilding question.
Yeah.
Basically, I had to have a buddy, gonna keep his name anonymous, you know, just for the sake of this video, who really struggled to bring up his upper arms, you know. Okay, fuck it, it's Alpha Destiny. And he told me he even said in a video how the slingshot, believe it or not, was the key to his tricep growth. He
Yeah.
said like you know, he used bands, he used chains, he used close grip, he even used boards. Like he was doing all this stuff to really overload the triceps. Obviously, he was trying to improve his bench, but at the same time, he wanted big arms too, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
whatever, he got the slingshot, and long story short, his arms blew up. Like I saw him in person the other day. Triceps are like noticeably bigger, and he told me like,
Yeah.
look, the slingshot is legit. So I want to know, in your opinion, would the slingshot be a solid tool for, you know, bodybuilders chasing bigger triceps? Like if they do like you know, back down sets with they do close grip and do back down sets with the.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just working on your lockout a little bit more, kind of similar, like you said, bands and chains. It's just a little bit more accessible for most lifters to use it than bands and chains. Doing it for reps, doing it tempo, using a slingshot with a tempo, again, going kind of 4 seconds down, 4 seconds up. A lot of time under tension makes it very difficult and still kind of keeps you safe under the slingshot, as well as just hammering your triceps in multiple ways. You know, there's kind of two main movements when you're using training your triceps. One is kind of when your arm is in front of your body, kind of like a tricep skull crusher. Right now, your elbow is kind of in front of your body. You tend to use a little bit more long head on the tricep, and then one where your arm is kind of with your body, kind of like a tricep push down. And then you're kind of using the lateral head a little bit more in the tricep. So I think a combination of pressing, different movements. I like an incline close grip, a flat close grip, some kind of, maybe band, chain, slingshot close grip, some type of skull crusher or even a French press, and then some type of lift where your body's close to your body. So a tricep push down, one-handed, two-hand rope, doesn't really matter, or even a machine. I think if you have some combo of those throughout your week, as well as a decent amount of frequency, I think obviously they're smaller muscles, your biceps and your triceps, so you can train those guys, you know, probably anywhere from 2 to even 5 times a week, depending on your experience and your training. And I think that's the best way to get them to grow a little bit.
Interesting. So okay. So I noticed Mark Bell in one of his videos. He's talking about you could do it in bench press, you could do it during push-ups. I recently had a subscriber send me a video of him doing like some heavy dips with the slingshot.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's something I don't do a lot of dips, but if I were to, I'd probably use the slingshot for it, just because for some reason my shoulders don't like dips much. They just always hurt a lot, and I always feel it in my front delt and in like my shoulder joint. So if I were to really want to do dips, I'd probably just implement the slingshot there. Same idea. Kind of overloads the top end, protects your shoulders a little bit, protects your joints a little bit.
Okay. Now I know I'm asking a lot of slingshot questions, but whatever.
Yeah.
The seated I really like the seated military press. You know, the barbell.
Yeah.
You wouldn't recommend slingshot if you're really plateauing on that lift, huh?
Yeah, typically not, just because the slingshot itself will kind of get in your face and just won't stretch as well across your chest. If you're really having some issues there, I would just go back to some basic periodization and try to add a little bit of frequency. So if you're seated overheading once a week for a 5x5, add another day, and you're doing maybe 2 to 3 sets of 10, and then slowly progress those over time. Obviously, switching up to some dumbbells in between might help as well. I really like a heavy standing dumbbell press.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movements. So I think just to vary there, and then also the more you can progress in your bench and your overhead. I don't want to say they directly transfer, because there's a lot of guys that have a good overhead and a weak bench, and a lot of guys that have a really good bench and a weak overhead. But I do think if you're constantly working on both, they do complement each other nicely and can grow both.
Okay. Let's get into give me a second here. What's a lift that's not a pause bench press that helps you out the bottom?
I think, again, to not be repetitive, kind of a tempo press. So you're taking anywhere from 4 to 5 seconds on the way down, 4 to 5 seconds on the way up. Heavy dumbbell presses, but what I often see is people using dumbbells and they're focusing too much on the weight rather than the range of motion, where the almost the only benefit of a dumbbell over a barbell is that you can get increased range of motion. With a barbell, you have to stop when the bar hits your stomach or your chest. With a dumbbell, you can go a little bit further because there's no bar across your chest. So to go full range, you kind of get that dumbbell as deep as you can, get a good stretch in your pecs, as well as even maybe like a pin press. A low pin press is probably a solid movement if you're having a lot of issues off the bottom of your chest. But as a power lifter or even a bodybuilder, if your form is pretty good on the bench press and you miss on your chest, chances are you probably just went too heavy. It's not that common that you miss off the chest that often.
Okay. What about, let's talk about the JM press, right? This one, I don't want to be repetitive, but this is another bodybuilding question, right?
Yeah.
You think for bodybuilding purposes, the JM press, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's a great movement. You can handle a lot of weight with it, and I think it's a similar movement as I mentioned, where you're kind of focusing on the long head of the tricep, your elbows in front of your body, so it's in that stretch position like a French press or a skull crusher. I think if your elbows can handle it, and you mix it into tricep day, you could easily replace a French press or a skull crusher and really put some good mass on there. It's a great strength movement. It's easier to overload because you're handling more weight. So, if you did 135 last week, it's a little easier to add 145 to it next week, whereas a tricep pushdown or a skull crusher is a little bit more of an isolation movement, so it's a little bit harder. You're using less loads. So you might have to even micro-load it. It's harder to add weight week to week or even month to month. I think if it works for your anatomy and your joints, I think it's a great movement for both strength and aesthetics.
Okay, if you were to take something like when you see guys doing like a quarter squat, right? People say it's bad for the knees, but then if you see guys doing like a 1/3 squat off the pins, people are like, okay, it has its place, What's your take on people saying that when you do a JM press, you're pretty much stopping like a few inches from the chest, but you're not stopping off pins. You're just stopping like just dead air. What's your take on people saying that's like a dangerous?
I think I don't know where the stuff started about quarter squatting being bad for your knees. I think it's because the typical type of person to quarter squat isn't having the proper motor pattern. It's not like they're a good squatter and they're just stopping halfway. They don't know how to squat, and so then they're only going so deep. Does that make sense? That's kind of the same as people not touching their chest on a bench being bad, but a spoto press being awesome. Spoto press is where you kind of do a board press with no board, and you'll pause a couple inches on your chest and press it back up. Yeah, so spoto press is the hot shit right now. Everyone thinks it's the best movement in the world, and it's a good movement. But then if you go to a commercial gym and someone's benching like this and just coming up halfway, they're going to break their shit.
That's it.
Yeah, so I think the majority of the time it's not the movement itself that is bad. It's the person and how they perform the movement that is bad. So if you're doing a JM and you don't know how to do a JM, or you don't even know how to bench properly, you're probably doing it wrong, and you're going to jack up your shoulders and elbows. If you don't know how to do a full squat properly with good form, and then you try to quarter squat or overload, it's probably going to be crap. Same with the bench. If you don't know how to bench full range of motion with really good form, and now you're trying to do a spoto press, or you just want to handle heavy loads and do like some kind of a board press, it's probably going to be crap. And that's where I think powerlifting translates to every sport in the world, especially bodybuilding, but football, etc. Is if you know how to squat, bench, deadlift, and strict overhead with proper form, you can do any exercise super easy. And you can also move through space, which is, all sports, basketball, soccer, probably better with better patterns.
So you're saying the JM press, it's a very purposeful stop. It's not just a reckless range of motion.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you're using proper loads that you can handle with proper form. I'm big on technique with everything I do and everything I coach. If you can use proper technique and you're using the right load for that, you should be fine. There are some things that I think that just anatomically don't work for everybody, and if it hurts your elbows and shoulders, maybe you should just not do it. You can find a different exercise. It's not like there's one exercise that's gold and all the rest are trash.
Exactly. No, but I think the jam press is a solid movement for triceps,
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
It's a bit underrated, but it needs to be a bit more popularized,
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know about it, for one, and then some people that do know about it, I think, try to go too heavy too soon, and then they talk about their joints and stuff hurting. But I think if you pace yourself and use proper loading patterns, you should be fine.
Okay, let's dive more into the deadlift.
Yeah,
hit me. Okay, so once again, a lat engagement. You talk to a million different coaches. They're all going to give you different answers. Some people saying, pretend you have an orange in your armpit. You're trying to squeeze it. Other people are saying try to bend it like it's just try to break the bar. Some people are saying, you bring the bar towards you like you're doing a standing cable pullover.
Yeah.
What do you like to tell? I know you tell people different things too.
Yeah.
But
I think all those cues you just said are pretty decent cues, and I've used a variation of all those all the time. I guess we could first talk about why we even want to engage our lats. Again, one, we want to keep the bar as close to us as we can in the deadlift. Again, this is bodybuilding or powerlifting. In bodybuilding, if you use more weight for more reps, you're going to grow more muscle. If you do 135 for a set of 5, or you use 225 for a set of 5, you're going to gain more muscle with 225, right? More stimulus. And in powerlifting, the same, plus obviously our goal is to lift the most amount of weight. So keeping the bar closest to our body as possible is going to use the most amount of weight. Like you said, I think about maybe bending the bar around my legs. I think about kind of that lat pull down. I think is a really good cue to engage your lats.
Getting the pullover.
Yeah, the pullover. Yeah, the straight arm lat pullover. Keeping it really close. Getting your shoulders as far away from your ears as possible. One, that's going to elongate your grip a little bit, so you can carry the bar less distance. And then two, it should engage those lats. And then another one is depending on the grip, some people hook grip, some people strap, some people mix grip. It's a little bit easier with a hook grip or a strap, but trying to get your elbows pointed behind you. And that's similar to kind of bench torque. When people are talking about bench torque and you're kind of twisting like that, you can already see my shoulder move a little bit, and that's going to allow you to flex those lats a little bit more. So, again, there's 100 cues and 100 ways to explain it, but all those ones you said I think are really solid cues.
Okay, what are some good cues for, because obviously deadlift, you're not just pulling up, you're pulling back too. And a lot of lifters tend to just pull up.
Yeah.
So what are some good cues to help the lifter, to help coach a client to really pull back?
Yeah, I think that's the most common mistake, is that there's no tension in the body or the system before people begin to pull. They try to pull the bar, it floats away from them, their hips shoot up, and then they're just using all low back to pull it up. Obviously, you use the low back in the deadlift. It's involved in a lot of the lifts we do, but you want to optimize it. So a couple cues is even just that lat engagement is going to keep that bar closer to you and hopefully have you pulling in a better line. Another thing I talk about is kind of a teeter-totter effect, where I'm dropping my hips down and backwards and using the barbell to hold my weight up. So if there was no barbell there, I would fall. But since there's a barbell there with some weight, it's almost holding me up. So I'm getting my body weight falling backwards towards my hips, pulling my hips towards the wall or whatever's behind me, literally almost falling backwards. But it's a very hard thing to coach, getting tension in your hamstrings and glutes before you pull. But that's kind of the goal we're trying to get, is tension into the ground, through our hamstrings, our glutes, our low back, and then into our arms and in the bar. And it's just patience. It's if you lifting too heavy too often, you're going to miss a bunch of these steps and a bunch of these sensations that you need to get tight before you pull. If you're training in a proper style, in my opinion, where you're not always going 100%, especially when you're a beginner, you need a certain amount of reps, around 60, 70, 80%, so you can practice this over and over and over. Then once you get that sensation and that motor pattern down, sure, you can go heavy. But those are just little things. Try to get tension in the hamstrings, kind of the main thing, and then you can hinge on your hips rather than just pulling with your back.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, especially on the whole, practicing the movement pattern, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of people, they want to go too heavy too soon. I feel like that's hands down holding back the majority of lifters out there, is that if we were to just leave the ego at the door, you know, and just really focus on like those 2.5 pound plates, you know, and just focus on that 5 pound PR, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Year in, year out, like even with me, and with a lot of just lifters I watch, and a lot of people who get injured, I feel like it's really ego is the number one problem, you know, because you're looking at your lifts last year and you're like, wow, I'm only doing this year, so I'm okay. Let me just add a little bit more. But they add a bit too much too soon, and it's just, you know.
Yeah, if they just look at it as lifting weights and getting stronger, rather than like a skill or technique involved. You know, it's a skill just like basketball or golf. It takes time, it takes years, it takes repetition.
Yeah, it's like people aren't looking at this whole thing in the long run, you know.
Yeah,
They're just
100%.
like they're too narrow minded, and they're just looking like, okay, next year, you know, or by Christmas I want this lift.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm learning too. It's not about that. It's about where you're gonna be in 10 years. You know, there's a lot of people who are stronger than you right now, and that's cool, you know. But like, you're probably gonna catch up to them later on. It's just like that story with the rabbit and the tortoise or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah.
You're gonna catch up.
I think America in particular is bad at it. One, because we have a culture of excess, but then two, this is 100% just a random theory of mine, that we use pounds. And so all our pounds are in 45-pound plates. And so everyone looks like, all right, if they deadlifted 405, next they think 495. Like that's their next PR. Rather than like kilos. Yeah, you can go by ones, twos, threes, you know, like, oh, all right, I hit 200 kilo pull. Now I should hit 204. Like the numbers break down easier. And so that may play a small role. Everyone just thinks 45-pound plate. Rather than don't think about plate or PRs, just think about numbers. All right, I hit 405. Let's hit 415. Then I'm going to hit 430, and before you know it, you'll be at 500.
But I think another factor too is that sometimes people are like, "Oh, I went to the gym and I hit a PR," you know. But in reality, they didn't really hit a PR. Just that their form got so bad that, like, obviously they got the weight up. You
know? Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm a big fan of training, not to failure. And not even till technical failure. Depending on how good you are as a lifter, your technical failure and your real failure will be closer together. But if you're a beginner, you know, let's say you can, like you just said, you can get 500 pounds off the ground, but you can't even pull 450 with good form. So then your PR is probably more like, or what you should be training with is like 405 or 425 until you do that perfectly, and then 435 perfectly. And then maybe in 4 to 6 months you can pull 450 or 475 perfectly.
And sometimes it's fluke too, you know. Sometimes like you like get a bunch of coffee and like really psych yourself up and just really get it that one day for that one set. But like,
yeah, you just lost at Call of Duty and your girlfriend broke up with you, and you can just rage out and pull 500 pounds.
Yeah, I feel like it's holding a lot of lifters back.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk about okay, I see a lot of deadlifters doing like, you know, they're on the platform, they do like the whole Brandon Lilly thing, you know?
Yeah.
And then like I forgot exactly how he does it, but what's behind that exactly? Like, is that like to engage the lats harder, or?
I think having a routine or superstition or a program or something that you do every single time before you lift is great. It's something that other sports adapted, and it's a way to obviously have the same pattern over and over, and then hopefully you build on a good result of the lift. So whether you step into the barbell left foot, then right foot, and then you take a breath or whatever it is, you look up the stars, whatever it may be, and then you pull, I think is great. I think that, like you just mentioned, Brandon Lilly, Dan Green, Stan Efferding, some of these guys were some of the pioneers in the raw powerlifting, hitting really big weights early when it started to get popular. So then the rest of the lifters just saw that as the way to deadlift. Whereas even I'm sure, I don't want to speak for Brandon Lilly. I'm going to see him next week, which will be cool. But I imagine that he would say, no, that's just how I pull, and that's how I get into my routine. There's nothing magic about what I'm doing. You could do, you could do the worm up to the freaking barbell. As long as that's what you do every single time, then you'll be okay. I think it's just like a golfer before he swings, how many practice swings he takes, a basketball player at the free throw line, how many times he dribbles or spins the ball. I think it's more just routine.
It's more of a ritual than anything else.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I do suggest everyone gets it, at least for the more complex lifts like a squat, bench, or deadlift. Getting some kind of routine on how you set up can be important and can definitely help you redo that form over and over and over and stay consistent.
Yeah, so every set looks exactly okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, let's talk about okay, how important is rowing variations for your deadlift? Like dumbbell rows, whatever, Pendlay rows, chest supported T-bar, regular T-bar.
Yeah. I think going back to the spectrum, right, where we have the deadlift off the ground competition style, and then maybe on the other end we have like a rear delt fly. That's about as far away as you can get from your deadlift, right? I think this upper half of exercises is what can help us get stronger in the next maybe 4 to even 8 weeks. Something like a pause deadlift, a block pull, a deficit pull, a pull against bands, things of that nature kind of fit in this top half where they can help you fix maybe a weak point or something different, a flaw in your form quickly. Where then in the middle here, we probably have rows and chin-ups, things of that nature. Again, the rear delts. I think this bottom half, barbell rows, chest-supported rows, whatever it may be, I think those are exercises that will help us in the next year, 2 year, 5 year. You can't do a cycle of barbell rows, 4 to 8 week training cycle, and then you have the biggest lats ever. Like, it doesn't work that way. If you do some kind of row, progressively overload it for the next 2 to 5 years, you'll get a bigger back, and then in turn, a bigger back will allow you to pull better, bench better, squat better. So that's how I kind of break up my training and how I see things. There's plenty of power lifters that I wouldn't say they do no rows, but they barely do rows, and they're also very, very strong because they just build lats based on the deadlift or a block pull. There's many ways to kind of skin a cat, but I think for the majority of people, again, for longevity, some kind of accessory work can definitely help you get into better positions, obviously build muscle, but allow you to stay healthier in the long run.
Interesting. No, I like that answer a lot, especially with you're saying the deadlifts up here, and you got like the assistance lifts that are really gonna help bring it up.
Yeah,
then under there you got accessories, whatever.
Yeah.
That's right under that.
That's exactly how I break it up. A block pull or a deficit deadlift is either a supplemental exercise or an exercise variation, and then a row, a face pull, whatever it might be, a stiff rear delt. Those are more accessories.
Okay, so you classify like a front squat for improving your squat as an assistance, or like a
that'd probably be supplemental. That'd probably be exercise variation, because it's obviously not the competition lift, but it's pretty directly related.
So what's the difference between a supplemental lift and an assistance? It's the same thing?
No, I would say an assistance or an accessory are something that doesn't closely emulate the lift. So like a row doesn't really look like a deadlift, although it can build muscle for a deadlift. trying to think. A skull crusher doesn't really look like a bench press, but it may help the bench press.
Mm-hmm.
So those I would call accessories.
Okay, perfect. But then assistance and accessory, like assistance is right above accessory, right?
Yeah, or exercise variation or supplemental exercise is probably what I would call the closer related lifts.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I like how you break down the pyramid, like.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a pyramid of priority. You know, if you're trying to increase your deadlift and all you're doing is rows and face pulls, you have your priorities wrong. You need to be deadlifting first, and then maybe stiff
Of
legs,
course.
and then maybe a row.
Of course. Okay, so we're a bit short on time here, so we'll break down the last question, then we'll pretty much wrap it up.
Cool, hit me.
So it's a bit of a bodybuilding question again, right?
Yeah.
So you got a lot of bodybuilders out there saying that the deadlift it's an all-around strength builder and it doesn't really hit one area really hard, and that's why there's a lot of bodybuilders out there who they want to get like freakishly big hamstrings. They do RDLs, like heavy RDLs or like deficit RDLs. Do they really focus on the RDL variations because it's an eccentric-based movement? You can still go pretty heavy. And then bodybuilders on the other side of the spectrum, they also say, look, I'm focused on my back, so I want to get a big back. So that's why they do rack pulls like right below the kneecap, with like a snatch grip or something like Josh Bryant, just pulls from right below the kneecap. So it's really a lot of back, Then some guys like Alpha Destiny, do it from above the knee, whatever. But what's your thoughts on this? Do you feel like, and I'm not saying one approach is better than the other, because even me in my training, I have bodybuilding goals, and I promote the snatch grip deadlift. I think it's a phenomenal upper back builder, a great lat builder,
Yeah.
But what's your thoughts on the conventional deadlift?
Yeah, I think there's, like you just said, there's two ways to go about it, and what's going to make the decision for you is a couple things. One, just what you enjoy. If you enjoy conventional deadlifts, but you're so stuck on RDLs, just conventional deadlift and then do a stiff leg. Like, it's not a big deal. And I think that's probably the main factor. I think also your split and how often you train. I think if you're kind of hypertrophy based and you're doing kind of a push pull legs routine, day off repeat, and you're training 6 days a week, I think something like that is probably the route I would go if I was going for purely hypertrophy, because then I could split things up where the first 3 days are heavier, and on my pull day I do conventional deadlift or maybe even a low block pull, and then on my second pull day then I would focus more in on like a RDL or something of that nature. If you're only doing back once a week, and I know that's often more like the IFBB level guys or something, even though I think that itself is slowly falling out of popularity. I think more people understand that frequency is good, but for especially more of a natural lifter, they're going to need a little bit more frequency. It's gonna end up helping them better in the long run, I believe. And I would probably do something like that, where it's a push-pull legs, day off, push-pull legs, and I would probably split it up. Same thing with the bench, where first day in the week's maybe a flat barbell, and I'm going a little heavier, sets of 5, sets of 8, as heavy as I can. And then second day of the week would probably be maybe a flat dumbbell or an incline dumbbell focus. I'm doing sets of 8, 10, 12. And the same thing, stiff legs. Or almost this other days, the variation of supplemental exercises. And you can probably do both too. It depends on your time in the gym. Like you said, you could do probably a rack pull from above the knee, and then right after that, go to an RDL or a stiff leg from the ground. And then you're kind of hitting that top half, and then you're hitting the bottom half separately. I think it's, again, a million ways to split a cat. I do think the conventional deadlift is the best way to hit multiple goals with the same, and you can use most amount of weight. So a low block pull, conventional, maybe even a snatch grip from blocks, or a conventional pull, I do think is more bang for your buck.
I respect how you're not biased in your part, because you talk to some powerlifters about this, and you're like, you have to deadlift, and it's like, look, if you got bodybuilding goals, if you're doing RDLs on a deficit and the bar is like the plates are like 1 inch from the floor, you're doing 405 for reps, you're gonna have huge hamstrings. Or if you're doing like 700 below the kneecap, on like a snatch grip rack pull, like you're gonna have a huge upper back,
Yes, powerlifting.
But it's like
there's a lot of ways to get strong, but especially bodybuilding. If you look over the years since the 60s, so many guys have gotten jacked many ways. I mean, there's guys that have gotten insanely jacked, and they've never touched a barbell. They've only touched machines and dumbbells. And then there's the opposite. You know, there's guys more like Ronnie Coleman that only use barbells and dumbbells and lift heavy. And he's obviously insanely jacked. You know, and then again, it's a spectrum. There's people that are somewhere in between. So, you know, I think people that are so dug into one way, there's two reasons that people are black and white. One is that they're just hard-headed, stubborn, and naive. They don't have a brain. And then two, is to make a statement. Sadly, in the world we live in, especially America these days, our culture, the internet, YouTube, you're more popular if you're just black and white. Say, this is the way, this sucks, they're stupid, this is the way.
Yeah.
Sadly, it's just more popular.
People like rebellious people, you know, like
yeah, they do.
They don't like when you're super open-minded and you're like you understand
yeah, bro, that's my curse.
Now, but with that being said, I think even if you're a bodybuilder, I think you could still benefit off some sort of pose off the floor. And then maybe one day, if that bodybuilder wants to maybe transition into powerlifting, at least he's been doing the pulls. You know, that's the way I like to go about it.
I agree, and I do think, you know, for the natural lifter, you're going to get the best amount of stimulus that way. So it's probably going to be better off. Where, you know, if you're using some kind of performance-enhancing drugs, I'm no expert in this world, but it seems that they can get more growth off of less stimulus. So, you know, for what we might need to do 5 sets of 5 heavy conventional deadlift, they could do a chest-supported row and a leg curl and get similar results.
Perfect. That pretty much wraps it up. Is there anything else? No. We could wrap it up with what are your goals for your training?
Man. Goal was to try to compete January or February, and then I just retweaked my back pretty bad. So I've been dealing with some back issues, kind of slowing me down on the squat and deadlift. So I just talked to a doctor friend of mine who's been helping me with some rehab stuff, and we basically just decided to shut it down for a little bit. So I'm probably going to do kind of upper body and a little bit about lower body hypertrophy stuff for about 6 to 8 weeks. With no squats or deads, probably just like a belt squat or lunges or something silly. And then hopefully compete this spring, I guess, if I can get my back going. I'm weighing about 210 pounds right now. I'd like to get down to 200 or so during this time. And then that's it. Just enjoy the holidays and have some fun.
Nice. So you're not going to do like a bench only meet. You're just going to go, you're going to heal up the back and then go full on.
Yeah, probably. One, because I suck at bench. It's not my strongest lift. And then two, I haven't done a full power meet in about 2 years. So it's been a while. So I'll probably just wait and doing full power somewhere.
Okay. I don't want to extend the Q&A, but I just thought of the last question and then we're going to wrap it up.
Let's do it.
Okay, so what's the obviously in the fitness community, you know, especially in like 2017, and especially in America where you're living in, you know, there's this whole ideology that, you know, more is better and just win at any cost, you know, by any means necessary, you know. And especially in America, you know, where like drugs and enhancement drugs are such a big part of just sports in general, you know. How do you not get like super influenced, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
I think I saw your video. Sorry, I think I saw your video before of you're talking about Louis Simmons and
yeah,
I like that video a lot. But what's your current thoughts on it? Like,
yeah, I mean, my thoughts are still similar. You know, I'd be lying to you if I said I never thought about taking performance enhancing drugs, or if I still don't think about it. It obviously pops in my head. I've been in the fitness industry about 10 years as a professional, and it's everywhere, like you said, especially in America, and especially in powerlifting and bodybuilding and YouTube and Instagram. Performance-enhancing drugs, steroids are a big part of the whole thing. So it definitely crosses my mind. I would love to be a little bit stronger and a little bit leaner and still be able to eat about the same and live, you know, train about the same. It'd obviously be awesome. But the main factor for myself, and this is kind of what I do with everything in life, is will this make me happier or will this bring me more value? And if the answer is not, you know, kind of hell yeah, then I just kind of say no. So, you know, I pulled 705 2 years ago, or no, I guess about a year ago at a deadlift only competition. And if tomorrow I could wake up and pull 800 pounds, it would be cool, but I wouldn't be that excited about it. It wouldn't change my life. It wouldn't make me happier. It wouldn't make my family love me more. It wouldn't make me more money. It wouldn't do anything that I want or need. And so in that instance, I can wait another 2 or 3 years to deadlift 800 pounds. I don't need to rush there. And that's kind of what performance-enhancing drugs are, in my opinion. One, it's a little bit of a rush to get somewhere. It gets you somewhere a little bit quicker, and that obviously gets you beyond the natural limit, so you can gain a little bit more muscle than you ever could. And again, I don't really care. You know, my health comes first. That's why I want to drop some weight. I just want to be healthier. I'm going to do a little bit more cardio. I'm getting old, bro. We got to worry about our hearts and cholesterol. So I just want to be healthy, and I want to feel good, and I want to be able to do the things I want to do. And performance-enhancing drugs don't really take me there.
Mm-hmm. But it's because you're surrounded by, like, you know, I'm sure you go to some of these YouTube conventions, or you get people walking in and out your gym all the time, you know, famous YouTubers who are like, and they know you're natural, and you know that they're not natural, you know?
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on people who, I'm sure they don't directly say it to you, but what are some, like, you know, some people, they just give off the vibe, like, you're kind of like a pussy if you don't get on drugs, you know? Or like, you're not serious about powerlifting
not dedicated.
because you're not doing what it takes to really get to the top.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this?
Again, that's kind of that black and white thing I go back to, and like I think anyone that's just so black and white is they're naive. They're just, you know, for lack of a better term, stupid. And if they want to think that about me, then I feel bad that they're dumb. There's more to life than having big biceps. I plan to be successful and happy through using my brain and my communication skills and my training knowledge, not flexing on a camera on the internet. So I definitely get that vibe from many people in the industry. A little bit less now, maybe, but especially when I was younger, you know, I've kind of been on the YouTube podcast scene since I was about 23, 24. And I got that a lot. Like, what's this kid asking me questions? Like, he's 23, he's not even on shit, he's not even serious. He deadlifts 600 pounds. This guy's a joke. And that's fine. That's fine. I just feel bad for them. One day, when they get a little bit older, some people mature or gain knowledge later in life. I felt I gained it pretty early. I had some experiences in my life that I had to mature up pretty quick. And some people will get it when they're 40 or 50, and then they'll realize, like, shit, man, all those steroids didn't make me happy. And they'll figure that out later.
So, solid answer, bro. All right, so we'll wrap it up here. So, to the audience, I hope you guys enjoyed this Q&A. Got the infamous silent mic. I really recommend that you subscribe to his YouTube channel. A lot of great powerlifting content out there. Very cool guy, open lifter. He could dance, you know.
Dude, a little bit of dancing. A little bit of dancing.
That's your ritual before the deadlifts.
That's it, bro. You got to get in a happy mood.
So, hope you guys enjoyed the Q&A. If you guys have any questions, let us know below. I'm going to timestamp everything, and I'll see you next time.
Appreciate it, man.
Sounds good? All right, bro.
Thanks, dude.
Peace out.
Have a good one, man.
You too, bro.